We need to acknowledge that colour. And we need to acknowledge the honesty and bravery of Kingsbarns to present a whisky with that natural colour. These aren't refill casks as far as we know, they're not dead inactive casks, yet we've got this incredibly beautiful, incredibly pale, 100% natural colour. Because this is what natural whisky looks like more often than not. This is exactly what we should seek out and demand, unless there's really good reason otherwise, like first fill sherry, red wine or virgin oak. It's just such a shame that we're more accustomed to glowing orange Diageo whisky than what is actually supposed to look like. Bravo, Kingsbarns. My one and only minor criticism of this whisky is that they mention twice on the label that it's matured for longer than the Dream to Dram release, but they don't say how long. In my humble opinion, if you're not going to put an age statement, then don't blow smoke up our arses talking about long maturations, because it doesn't mean anything. But that is literally the only minor part of craft presentation that this release falls down on. It would have been great to see even a 5 or even a 4-year-old age statement on this, but other than that, Kingsbarns have done an absolutely cracking job. We're guaranteed with this one on the label, where it matters, that this whisky is 46% ABV, the gold standard for flavour. It's natural colour, it's non-chill filtered. We're also told that it's matured in a combination of 90% ex-bourbon barrels and 10% STR red wine barriques. So apart from the minor lack of an age statement, they've done everything right on this release, and they've put it on the label so we've got full transparency. What is a Doocot, I hear you ask? I'm sure a lot of people are wondering that. A Doocot or a dovecot is basically a pigeon loft. It's a structure on the top of the building, or it's a freestanding structure that has pigeonholes on the inside for pigeons or doves to live in. And I'm told that there is a dovecot, as the English would say, or a Doocot, as the Scots would say. I can't remember if it's on or near Kingsbarns Distillery, but that's the link there. And also another nice little touch is that they've actually put a nice little pair of doves on the top of the cork stopper, which you could say is added cost, and this whisky could probably be 50p cheaper if it didn't have that. Same with the pigeonholes moulded into the glass there, but it's nice. So this one, the Kingsbarns Doocot, it was released a little while ago. I did review the Kingsbarns Dream to Dram quite a while ago now, and I gave that one a glowing review. I'm a massive fan of what they're doing over at Kingsbarns. I think that they're incredibly underrated and they're not talked about anywhere near enough. They make incredible whisky. I've never had a bad Kingsbarns. They just continue to impress, including with that Dream to Dram that I reviewed quite a while ago. I wasn't expecting that much from it. It seemed like a fairly pedestrian whisky, but it was absolutely flavour packed, and that sharp, barley driven, very sweet, sharp, lemony and malt profile really aligns with my tastes really well. I really loved the Dream to Dram. It could have easily been my whisky of the year, and I've also really loved a lot of the other Kingsbarns expressions that I've had. In particular, I've had a few, I'm not sure if I've actually released them yet, but I've had some blind drams in advent calendars, which have been some of the single cask releases from Kingsbarns, and I've loved every one of them. So without further ado, let's get some Kingsbarns Doocot in the glass and see what it's like with that beautiful natural colour. This is what whisky looks like. This is what quality whisky looks like. Thank you, Kingsbarns. Kingsbarns Doocot on the nose. Smells like pigeons. It doesn't. Lots of sweet vanilla on the nose. Sweet and sharp. Very malty. Lemony. Very fresh. Intense malted barley spirit and barley sugar. Milk bottle sweets. You remember those? Intense fruity malt. lemon, tangerine, sweetened grapefruit. Sweet, really sweet and intense, but also beautifully sharp, with lots of dry cereal notes and some chalky love heart sweets. Wonderfully fresh, without any cloying sweetness from like overactive festival bourbon casks. It's really all about the malted barley. A little bit of farminess as well. Reminds me a little bit of the malty lemon malt driven and slightly farmy quality that you get on a Kilchoman Maccabee, but obviously without the peat. I think that's actually a very, very good way of describing this whiskey. If you imagine Kilchoman Maccabee with that malt and the barley and just the sheer quality of that amazing whiskey, but without the peat, that's what you get. That's really close to what you get from a Kingsbarns. A little bit of farminess, a little bit of gristy barley husk in there as well. Quite gristy, you can really taste the raw ingredients in this. Totally malt driven, with just loads of malted barley and distillate character. Incredible aroma. Let's see how it tastes. Very, very sweet. Sweet and sharp as per the aromas you get on the nose. Fruity and sharp lemon and lime. Musty oak, musty lemon sweets. And a little touch of like a really sharp, cloudy lemonade. A little bit of cream soda in there as well, some of that creaminess coming through. Over time, as you taste this and give it a chance to develop, it really mellows out into this wonderful sweet and creamy maltiness. So wonderful flavours. It's a very straightforward whiskey, but it has wonderful flavours with wonderful intensity. It's really a style of whiskey that I really, really enjoy. Let's have one more sip and look at the finish. Again, sweet but sharp. Sharp lemon, musty oak and dry cereal on the finish. Perhaps a little hint of the STR red wininess and some waxy jelly sweets and spice on the absolute death of the finish. But as always with Kingsbarns, they do use STR red wine barriques, but I think that they show excellent restraint on not overdoing it with those STR casks, because I think that Kingsbarns is one of a very, very short list of distilleries that use STR casks well, because those fancy cask tricks on this one and all Kingsbarns are very subtle and very well hidden. Also interesting that you do get that slight farmy note on this one. As far as I know, it's a completely unpeated whiskey, this Doocot from Kingsbarns, but it does have a slight farminess to it, which I think is just the depth and the intensity and the robustness of the malted barley coming through. It's just such a characterful whiskey. Such an incredible spirit-driven whiskey that it's really true to the traditional Lowland style as well, which I think is a really nice thing. And it just shows everything that is great about young, malt-driven whiskies. I do think that it'll be really interesting to see how this develops at an older age. It has enough of that malt character to pull it off at an older age. I think that it has the flavour and the robustness to pull off a long-term maturation, because not all whiskies do. But I also think that it's so well crafted and polished at this young age that I don't think that it necessarily needs a long maturation. So very high hopes for Kingsbarns Distillery, but really this stuff, for me, it's perfect as it is. In a way, I think it would be fair to say that this is slightly basic and stripped down whiskey, because it's got so little cask influence, it's got no peat, at least as far as we're aware. It's not about super long-term maturation, it's all about the barley, it's all about the stills, but it's important to remember that that's not the same as a bland and boring whiskey, because that is not what this is. It's just that almost all of the flavour in this whiskey is from that distilled barley, and this whiskey has more flavour than most whiskies could dream of, pun not intended. Slightly intended. So I'd prefer to call this a pure whisky rather than a stripped down and basic whisky. It's distilled malted barley with all of the unnecessary distractions removed, and I love it. Regarding the casks, it's great that they tell us the cask breakdown on this label. I really, really wish that more distilleries would do that. It's also great that they're going for a relatively no-nonsense 90% ex-bourbon cask on this one to highlight the distilled malt. Normally, I hate pretty much anything that's had STR anywhere near it. Just my opinion, but I think that STR is a plague on modern whisky, and it makes everything taste the same no matter what distillery made it. But I think that Kingsbarns is fairly unique, in my opinion at least, that they really make STR casks work really well in a really subtle way. You can possibly taste their influence if you're looking for it, but I think that it's very, very well done. Obviously, you can't do a review of this Kingsbarns Doocot without comparing it to the Dream to Dram, and I'm really pleased that I think they're actually very, very similar, which is great news for me because I was really, really sad when they discontinued Dream to Dram. I absolutely loved that one. I think Dream to Dram is possibly a little bit sharper and a little bit more spirit-led than this. I think that Doocot is a little bit more rounded and may appeal to more people who want sharp lemon malt heads, but I think that the two are really very, very close, and in my book that's a really good thing. So for anyone who's considering buying a bottle of this, what is similar to this? What kind of things would you need to enjoy to be someone who would be interested in a bottle of this? I think that Bruichladdich is quite similar to the Kingsbarns style. I think that the style that you get from this Doocot, it probably sits in the middle of the wonderful malty and creamy Laddie 10 and that slightly more sharp and slightly more raw Laddie Classic. In my humble opinion, I think that the Kingsbarns Doocot is probably the best of both, and it's possibly even better than both of those Bruichladdich releases, which is high praise indeed because I really, really love my old, sadly discontinued Bruichladdich Laddie 10. But I think that the slightly more sharp profile that you get from this is just as high quality as anything that I've ever had from Bruichladdich. I think that there's also some crossover between this and Bladnoch as well, which is great, seeing some Lowland solidarity there. People love to crap on the idea of regions in whisky, and for good reason, because there are as many distilleries that don't fit in with their regions as there are those that do. And I'll probably get someone in the comments saying that regions are all artificial make-believe just for mentioning it, but I think that it's great to see Kingsbarns championing the stereotypical Lowland style, just as Bladnoch does, at least with its less cask-heavy releases like the 10 and the 11 and the Vinea. And if you like things like the Bladnoch 10, 11 and Vinea, then you'll probably like this one as well. Although, in my opinion, sorry Bladnoch, but I think that Kingsbarns is really the new king of the Lowlands. See what I did there? I think that Glencadam and Deanston as well, they're two other very cereal and distillate-driven house styles that are quite similar to this. And I think that if you enjoy a Glencadam and a Deanston, then you'll probably like this one too. And finally, Isle of Arran. I think that Isle of Arran is obviously an incredibly popular distillery and one that I really love because it's another one that can produce tremendously sweet, fresh and fruity malts. And especially if, like me, you like their cleaner and fresher releases, in particular that sorely missed 14-year-old from Arran, then this one is worth a look. Finally, we have to talk about price on this one. A lot of new distilleries get a lot of flack for selling 3-year-old spirit for 50, 60, 70 pounds. But this stuff, as the first widely available general release from Kingsbarns, is actually a little cheaper. And I think that what you get from this one for £45, which is the full price for this, believe it or not, is incredible value. You can pay £45 for a mass-produced whisky from Diageo or Pernod Ricard from a supermarket, and you don't get half the experience that you get from this. And I think that with a bit of luck, I think we're about to see a few more of these new craft distilleries offering whisky that for the informed and discerning drinker offers a level of craft and quality that the average distilleries who believe in filtering out flavour and heavy dilution will struggle to compete with. So you may be able to tell that I'm a massive fan of this whisky from Kingsbarns. I'm very excited for Kingsbarns. I don't know why more people aren't talking about them. I think that it's wonderful whiskey from a wonderful distillery. And again, it really reminds me of Kilchoman out on Islay, the way that they really bucked the trend and brought the fight to the established distilleries with better presentations and better attention to detail and quality. I think what Kilchoman did on Islay, Kingsbarns are really going to do on the mainland in the Lowlands. I think that it's fantastic stuff, and it's not the last time you'll see Kingsbarns on this channel. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of Kingsbarns. I hope that you're enjoying it as much as I am, because I really hope that people continue to give these guys money, because they're doing a great job, and I really hope that they have a bright place in the future of whiskey. Thanks for watching. Going to go off and enjoy the rest of my very pale, very natural colour whiskey here. See you next time. Cheers.